I worked as a delivery driver for many years, and there are things customers were never supposed to know. But I don't work there anymore, and I think it's time to finally tell the truth. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and in the comments, tell us what your profession is and whether you've ever had strange or unexpected moments at work. My name is Daniel. I started working as a food courier when I was just 19 years old. At first, it was supposed to be a temporary job. I needed money for college, rent, and basic life expenses. I thought I would stay for a few months. Those months turned into years. Every day, I delivered pizzas, burgers, and hot meals to hundreds of homes. I saw wealthy neighborhoods with huge houses and small apartments where families struggled to get by. I met kind people who smiled and thanked me like I was doing something important, and I met others who barely looked at me when opening the door. In the beginning, I took the job very seriously. I wanted to be fast, polite, and honest. I checked every order carefully. I drove as quickly as I could without breaking the law. I made sure the food stayed warm. I believed hard work would be noticed and rewarded. But reality was different. The job was exhausting. Long hours on the road, traffic jams, bad weather, late nights, and the pay was low. The base salary barely covered gas and basic bills. Tips were what really made the difference. Some days were good. People would tip generously and wish me a great evening. Other days, I would work for hours and barely make enough to feel it was worth it. After a while, I noticed something. The older couriers, the ones who had been there for years, acted differently. They weren't in a rush like I was. They weren't stressed over every small detail. One evening, during a break, I asked one of them how he stayed so calm all the time. He laughed and said, "Kid, you'll learn. This job has its own rules." I didn't understand what he meant at first. Over time, I started noticing small things, shortcuts they took, tricks they used, ways they made the job easier on themselves. At first, I didn't agree with everything I saw. Some of it felt wrong. But when you're tired, hungry, and barely making enough money, your thinking slowly changes. The work culture among couriers was different from what customers imagined. It wasn't just about delivering food. It was about surviving long shifts and finding little ways to make the day easier. I told myself I would never become like them. But little by little, I did. And that's when I learned the first secret. The first secret was taught to me during a late-night shift. It was around 10 in the evening. I had been working since noon. I was starving. I hadn't had time to eat anything all day except a small snack. One of the older couriers, Mike, noticed me staring at a pizza box while loading it into my car. "You hungry?" he asked. I nodded. He smiled and said, "Watch this." He carefully opened the box just a little, lifted one slice from the side, and adjusted the remaining slices so the pizza still looked full and normal. Then he closed the box. "Customer will never notice," he said calmly. I was shocked. "You can't do that," I whispered. He shrugged. "Happens all the time. Long drives, no breaks, low pay. We take care of ourselves." I didn't do it that day, or the next, but the idea stayed in my head. A week later, I had a delivery that was over 30 minutes away. Traffic was terrible. My stomach was hurting from hunger. The smell of fresh pizza filled the car. I kept thinking about what Mike had shown me. Finally, I pulled over for a moment. My hands were shaking as I opened the box slightly. I told myself I would just look. Then I carefully took a very small corner from one slice. I rearranged the pizza just like Mike did. When I closed the box, it looked normal. I felt terrible. I kept thinking the customer would notice immediately. But when I delivered it, the man smiled, thanked me, and closed the door. Nothing happened. No complaint, no call from the restaurant. That was the moment everything changed. At first, I promised myself I would never do it again. But hunger is powerful. On long shifts, when there was no time for breaks, I sometimes did it again. Always just a small piece, always careful. Each time, the guilt became weaker. It wasn't something I was proud of, but it became part of the job culture. Other couriers joked about it. "One slice is the courier tax," they would laugh. I started realizing that many of the things customers assumed were impossible happened every day. And that was only the beginning, because food wasn't the only thing affected by how people treated couriers. Tips played a role too. Most customers tipped. Some tipped a little. Some tipped a lot. And those people were remembered. But there were others who never tipped. Not once. No matter how fast the delivery was, no matter how polite you were. At first, I didn't think much about it, but the older couriers did. They kept mental notes. Apartment 3B never tips. Blue house on the corner, don't expect anything. I thought it was childish, until I started feeling the frustration myself. Imagine driving in heavy rain for 30 minutes, climbing 3 flights of stairs, delivering food hot and fresh, and the customer closes the door without even a thank you. After months of that, it starts to affect you. Some couriers had their own quiet way of responding. They never damaged food, they never did anything obvious, but when a non-tipping customer ordered again, they didn't rush. They took their time. If they had multiple orders, that address went last. By the time the food arrived, it wasn't as warm as it could have been. Not ruined, just not fresh. I watched this happen many times. At first, I refused to do it, but one winter night changed my mind. I had slipped on icy steps while delivering to a house that never tipped. My knee hurt badly. The customer barely looked at me. A week later, I got their order again. I remembered the fall. I remembered the cold, and I didn't hurry. I told myself I was just being careful, but deep down, I knew why. When I arrived, the food was warm, but not hot. The customer didn't say anything, and strangely, I felt a small sense of satisfaction. I'm not proud of it, but it's the truth. Among couriers, this behavior wasn't seen as cruel. It was seen as balance. Good customers got fast service. Bad customers got slower service. It was never talked about openly, but everyone understood. Over time, I realized this system existed everywhere. It wasn't written anywhere. It was just part of the job. And the longer you worked, the more you became part of it. But beyond food and tips, there were many strange situations too, things I never expected to see. Being a courier meant seeing a side of life most people don't. There were orders that no one picked up. You would knock, call, wait, nothing. Sometimes you'd wait 10 minutes before finally leaving. Later, you'd find out the customer fell asleep or gave the wrong address. There were people who opened the door in pajamas in the middle of the afternoon. Some looked embarrassed. Some didn't care at all. There were arguments, couples fighting about what they ordered, kids crying because the sauce was wrong, people blaming me for missing items I didn't pack. Once, a man yelled at me for 5 minutes because his drink had too much ice. Another time, someone accused me of being late when I arrived early. There were also kind moments. Elderly people who invited me to rest for a moment. Parents who thanked me like I was doing them a huge favor. Kids who smiled like Christmas had come. Those moments made the job feel worth it. But the negative ones piled up too. The stress, the long hours, the feeling of being invisible. Among couriers, we joked to survive. We shared stories. We shared frustrations. We shared our little secrets. It became a strange family. We looked out for each other. And sometimes we taught each other things that probably weren't right. But in that environment, it felt normal. Still, inside, I often felt conflicted. Some days I laughed. Some days I felt ashamed. Some days I felt angry. I knew I wasn't being the perfect worker I once wanted to be, but I also knew the system pushed people into these behaviors. After years of doing this job, I started thinking about my future. Was I going to be a courier forever? Did I want this life? The answer slowly became clear. I needed change. The day I quit wasn't dramatic. No big argument, no big goodbye. I simply realized I was done. I was tired of the long shifts, tired of the stress, tired of feeling like I had to bend my values just to get through the day. I found another job, something more stable, something with regular hours. When I ended in my notice, some of the couriers wished me luck. Others joked that I'd be back, but I never returned. For a long time, I kept these stories to myself. I never told friends, never told family. I felt embarrassed, not because I was a bad person, but because I became part of something I once disagreed with. Now that I'm older, I understand it better. People don't start jobs wanting to cut corners. They adapt to survive. They follow the culture around them. Still, I think people deserve to know what it's like behind the scenes. I'm not sharing this to scare anyone. Most couriers are hardworking and honest, but there's a hidden side too. A side built from exhaustion, low pay, and frustration. I've never told this story before. It feels strange to finally say it out loud. A little embarrassing, but also freeing. I don't work there anymore, and I believe many couriers today probably still do some of the same things. It's like a secret passed down from worker to worker. So the next time you order food, remember, there's a real person behind that delivery. Someone tired, someone hungry, someone doing their best in a tough job. Maybe a little kindness goes further than we realize. Maybe a simple thank you. Maybe a small tip. I'm not a courier anymore, but now you know a little more about what that world is really like. And sometimes, knowing the truth changes everything.